Hey everyone, how's it going? This is your host Yoshino. You're listening to Artist Decoded. This is episode 180, and I'm here with guest host today, Columbia Tatone, who is a commercial director, and she brought a friend of hers onto the podcast that she shot for a CBS spot, and he is a professional boxer. His name is Mike Lee, and Mike is also the CEO and co-founder of the company Soul CBD. How you doing, Columbia?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think for me as a director, I'm super infatuated with like the human process of transformation, like the mind, human connection. And yeah, I'm interested in the emotional scar tissue experience, how it heals and evolves us. And so with Mike, I was so excited to sit down with him and kind of take like a bird's eye view of how through his story, pain and his journey to healing himself amidst his obvious incredible boxing career has been like this through line of the unfoldment of his identity and essentially now like kind of living out this calling as like a truly empathic healer, with the Soul CBD and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, his story is incredible. He's an amazing human, and I'm stoked for you guys to have a listen.
Definitely. Yeah. I think everyone's going to really enjoy this episode. And thanks so much for taking the time to do this. And it was a pleasure to have you on as a guest host.
Thanks so much.
Before we begin, I would like to announce that we just launched our long-awaited Artist Decoded Patreon page today. Go to www.patreon.com/artistdecoded. You can gain access to exclusive Artist Decoded content, which includes uncut interviews, exclusive long-form videos, and a monthly Patreon exclusive guest interview, and much more. So go there, check it out. Let us know if you have any feedback at info@artistdecoded.com. Feel free to email us over there. And here it is, episode number 180 with Columbia Tatone interviewing Mike Lee. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out and having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
You and I go back, 4 or 5 years now? We did the Fox Sports promo together. What fight was that?
Yeah, we did a promo together before my first junior world title fight, I think. It was either on Fox Sports or CBS Sports, and it was kind of like one of those 24/7-esque lead-ins before the show. And yeah, I mean, you crushed it. It was awesome.
You. Yeah, no. So it was great to be able to do that with you. I'm glad that, it's been a couple of years now. It's nice to like kind of recap on what's happened since then. You've had some big highs, some lows, it's been kind of great. But to see, when I think about your story and I look at where you've gone with all of it and how you've sort of, I don't know, I just see you've become this like wounded healer through all of it, and I know you talked about what you started fighting when you were 8, was it?
Yeah, 8 years old.
8 years old. And I remember you talking about how you spent your whole life since you were 8 years old training for this one opportunity, for this 36-minute fight, basically. And that just kind of blew my mind. And then what ended up happening there, and I know you had like a great loss. That fight was for world title?
World title, yeah.
So can you tell
MGM
me,
Grand.
Yeah. What happened there? Because I know the thing that we did with CBS, you did win that fight. That was like, at the time, you were about to have the biggest fight of your career, hometown, big deal.
Well, it's interesting. At that point, every fight is the biggest fight of your career, right? But the expectations, the implications, it all just gets bigger and bigger. And for that fight, I think that my first title fight on CBS, that fight got me, I think, top 5 in the world. So for me, it was, every single fight was massive because, especially in boxing, they're very unforgiving when it comes to losses. So if you can keep that undefeated streak, guys like Floyd Mayweather made careers out of it. It's huge. So, winning that fight, the one that, we worked on, the project right beforehand was huge because it put me in the position to have much bigger fights. But, as you alluded to, that 36 minutes, a lot of people don't realize this, not only about fighters, but professional athletes. Like, I started fighting at 8 years old, right? First time I put on gloves. And my entire life has been dedicated to this sport. And the hours and days and months and years of sacrifice that I put into it is, incredible if you think about it and really add it up. But what's most fascinating about that, and what I want people to understand about professional athletes in general, is that what you're watching on TV is just a culmination of all that sacrifice and the years put in, right? So it's easy to judge someone when they make a mistake, or when they don't perform, or when things don't go their way on TV in that game, in that 2-hour game or that 36-minute fight. But when I think about, I've just fought for my last fight. I fought for world title, MGM Grand, in front of a million people on TV, maybe more, thousands in attendance. Right. Your face is all over the casino and arena. And like, I grew up thinking about that. Like, I grew up at like 15 years old thinking, man, one day I'm going to get out of the limo and walk through the MGM Grand. It's like Mike Tyson fought there, and, all these legends. So that moment was incredible. But back to the 36 minutes, boxing is 12 rounds, right? 3 minutes per round. So there's the 36 minutes. It's 36 minutes of your life in these fights, or maybe even shorter, where you spent so much time and sacrifice preparing for that moment, which I just think is incredible. And it's make or break, like scars on my hands, broken noses, broken ribs, all to get to these moments and to put everything on the line. So that's why, for me, I've always respected fighters, win or lose, so much, because at the end of the day, we're walking out of that tunnel. It's the loneliest walk in the world. There's no one that can help you anymore. When the bell rings, everybody in your corner, your entourage, your posse you see on TV, they step out of the ring and you go forward. And then is a moment that you're like, I need to win, and I might die tonight. 4 fighters died, maybe I think 3 in 2019. Top ranked guys, so there's a reality of that too, where you're risking your life, you're competing on a grand stage. And most importantly, you're going for it. You're willing to fail. You're willing to get embarrassed. You're willing to lose in front of millions of people. And, I was always willing to take that risk, win or lose. And right. I've done both,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's amazing because, obviously it took you your entire life to get to that point. But one of the things that I always remembered when we worked together, when we were filming, is I was under the impression, I was like, Mike, I want to put some music on for you to kind of help you get in your zone. And I'm thinking you wanted to listen to like some crazy metal or like some rap. And you're like, no. Like, I got this. I'm like, okay, you do you. And all of a sudden, Frank Sinatra just like pours into the arena, the room. And I'm like, this guy, you just had, there was a calmness that, for me, it's not that I work with boxers every day, but you harness your energy and your focus from a place of calm. And I was really impressed with that because, obviously with boxing, you match that with your discipline. But I always imagined that a boxer, because it's seen as this like hyper masculine, like, strong, that you have to be angry, that you have to go to this place of anger to be able to get in that space to fight. Like, I'm here to injure this person. I'm here, like you have to have that fight or flight in order to be in that mode, in order to win. And that wasn't you. And when I think about that moment and then just kind of looking at your span of history, like you've had this incredible career as a boxer, but there's been this very interesting thread of pain that has sort of been this precursor to the fullness of living out your destiny, which is, like I was saying, like as this wounded healer. So, you started boxing, when you were 8, you went all the way to try and win a world title, like, you know, you intended to. But along the lines, you know, at some point, I think when we had worked together, you weren't really upfront about it publicly, but you discovered that you had this illness, this autoimmune disorder. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was about and what that is?
Yeah. Well, the first thing with the music that I thought of is I always loved to be like in what they call flow state. And for me, getting in flow state was like having fun. And I fought in Madison Square Garden, Cowboys Stadium, MGM Grand. I do the same thing before every single fight, all 22 of my fights. We're coming out of the tunnel, and I say to myself, have fun, baby, have fun. And it's a way for me to realize, like, the way I won wasn't coming in as Mike Tyson. I'm going to break your face. I'm going to come in with this anger. That works for some guys. It didn't work for me. So in the dressing room before these fights, we'd be playing, you know, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind, and Fire, R&B, hip hop, but like stuff that made me like want to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't play like hardcore Eminem or like hardcore rap. I like stuff that put a smile on my face, and that's how I perform better. So, you know, I do think that people don't see that lens of fighters, and all they see is two guys, you know, beating the hell out of each other. But you need to understand there's a lot more to it behind the scenes. But, you know, yeah, in terms of my illness, I think that throughout this sport, a lot of athletes deal with it. You know, pain is a massive factor. And for me, I really didn't have much pain early in my career. I was 12-0 at the time, undefeated, on top of the world. As I mentioned, I fought in all these different arenas all over the world. And I felt on top of the world. I was like, felt invincible, really. And right before my 13th fight, I was going to fight on an undercard of an HBO card, big fight for me. I started to get really sick. I started to get a lot of headaches. I started to get a lot of body aches. My back was spasming. I was getting, you know, skin rashes. My entire immune system was shutting down. And I was, you know, I didn't know what it was. We ended up canceling that fight, and I ended up spending the next almost 2 years in and out of hospitals battling what we later found out was this autoimmune disease known as ankylosing spondylitis, which affects your back, it affects your immune system, inflammation, and I started having a lot more complications because of that. So I went from a kid who was literally in Super Bowl commercials and on top of the world,
Right,
thinking
the
Subway stuff, like Subway commercials, selling sandwiches, fighting these arenas, 26 years old, to laying in a hospital bed, watching myself on TV and wondering, you know, if these people only knew like what was going through my mind. It was the darkest, loneliest, toughest moments of my life. I was on 8 different medications. I was on anti-anxiety, antidepressants. I was just completely depressed, in pain constantly, completely addicted to painkillers. And looking back at it now, years later, I wonder what caused it. I'm not sure. I think ultimately I was in a lot of fight or flight, naturally being a fighter. And I think that really taxed my immune system. We can really dive into that later. But going through that process really changed who I was as a human being.
Right.
I went from everything about me, winning fights, making money, to learning, you know, about empathy, learning about gratitude. And it sounds corny, but I had no other option. Right. And I started diving into health and wellness and reading books and learning about how to heal myself, because every doctor I went to either wanted to do some type of surgery procedure or write me a prescription. And I knew I couldn't continue down that path. So slowly but surely, I finally got back in the ring and still dealt with pain my entire career and still to this day. But I went from in hospital beds, doctors telling me that I was done fighting on 8 medications to 0 medications. And my last fight, fighting for a world title. So, you know, that whole process taught me that the mind is the strongest tool you have, and the mind controls the body. And if you can figure out ways to lower your stress and, you know, increase your mindset in terms of your body and your performance, the sky's the limit. And it's just been, it's been a hell of a journey of a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah. I mean, even hearing you say that you started having all these issues. You go to the doctors, and I know you wrote that invisible pain thing that I read, and it really is. It's an invisible, invisible illness, really. And they're like, no matter how much money you spent, no matter how many doctors you went to, everyone's like, I don't know, kid, like, here's some more meds. This will deal with this, and everything's kind of exacerbating the issue. But for you to be laying there in the hospital bed and everybody kind of just telling you like your dreams are over, and the more that you train, or the training that is required for you to do and be, who and what you want to be, is causing more pain. So I read this book once by Angela Duckworth called Grit, and she looks at the studies of, is grit something that's innate, or is, can you learn it? Is it something that you can be socialized into? But I'm just curious, when you're laying there and everybody who has an MD, PhD behind their name that we're supposed to trust in Western medicine is sort of hopeless, what was it about you that's like, there's got to be something different? When did you start looking into different medicine, Eastern medicine? And like how did that all work out where you're like, I'm going to get up and do this? What is it about you that made you kind of turn a corner?
I think ultimately, I was on so many painkillers dealing with not only the autoimmune illness and so many things that came along with that, but also trying to train on top of it, that it was really messing with my mind too. And I kind of got to that breaking point. I honestly got to that point where my family was worried about me. And I knew I had a couple options to figure out how to get better and change my life, or, to keep taking the painkillers and go down this dark road. And so I think that in that sense, pain is an incredible gift. And I say this all the time because pain is the greatest catalyst for change that we have, right? So often we shy away from pain, or we complain about pain, but pain in my life and risk and pain tied together have given me the greatest gifts my life has ever had, and I think it's important to look at that, because the next 60, 70 years of my life, I'll have a lot more pain, mental, physical, whatever it is. But if I can choose to look at it as a gift and how do I make the most out of it, it really changes everything. And something just switched, and I started changing my mindset to it instead of, feeling like a victim to, okay, how can I fix this? How can I make the most out of it? But I think ultimately the greatest doctor you'll ever have is your gut. It's your intuition. And Western medicine has an incredible place. It's advanced incredibly in the past 50 to 100 years, but your gut and intuition has been around since human beings have. It's a brain that's been around for millions of years. And so I just started listening to that. I started listening to my gut and intuition, because these doctors who sat in the room with me for 15 minutes didn't ask me about, my diet, my lifestyle, if I was meditating, if I was open to trying stem cell therapy, open to trying, was I doing infrared saunas? Was I doing cold, like all these different modalities that didn't include popping a pill? They didn't ask me about that. All they wanted to do was throw pills at me. So my gut and intuition just finally said enough's enough. And it really started to push me towards a path of healing and connecting with other human beings. I've had the opportunity now to speak all over the world to student athletes, to companies, and talk about, I do a lot of like visualization processes. Before every single fight of my life, I would visualize the fight. And I worked with a couple sports psychologists who got me started on this. And I started learning these techniques to really trick the body into doing and performing how you want to perform. And I never would have got there without dealing with pain, right? So I'm now grateful that I've had the opportunity to affect thousands of people, speaking and connecting with them because I've gone through this pain.
Right.
And now, hopefully, I don't have all the answers, but teaching them and showing them there's another route. And most importantly, telling them that there's hope.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I wish I had more of when I was laying in hospital beds. And even, when I deal with days, I showed up here and I told you I was having a migraine.
Right. Yeah.
I still deal with pain almost every single day.
Right.
But I now have a sense of hope that it's going to get better. And I wish someone told me that in my darkest moments.
Yeah.
Because I think hope is an incredible, it's a powerful thing to have.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's funny when you talk about hope that way. I personally have always struggled with the idea of hope, but when you put it in that context, I'm like, because hope to me has always felt like maybe, but you're somebody that's like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm onto something. This has helped me and I want to encourage you. I kind of want to be this potential opportunity that it might work for you. But just when I look at your story and I look at how you've dealt with pain. And like I said, when we met, you weren't really forthright about what you were dealing with, what you were going through. And then at some point you were like, hey, like, I think I'm going to open up to, what was it? Derek Jeter's, the
Players Tribune.
Players Tribune. Yeah. And you were like, I'm going to be honest with them because again, in boxing, it's like, you were talking about when you go to these interviews and like all this stuff, like they expect you to be, kind of this asshole that's just like, I'm ready to fuck this guy up. Like this, I'm coming for you type of thing. This whole masculine, blah, blah, blah. And when really that's not who you are. But same with the, you letting people know and being honest about, hey, I have this thing happening, this medical issue happening. Like when it was really a courageous thing because now people are going to potentially look at you as a weakness, and you don't want to be in the ring and think this guy knows that I'm in pain right now and, kind of catch you off, because obviously boxing is very much mental sport more than anything else. But
that was it. I was so worried about being vulnerable and my opponents and potential sponsors or, agents, whatever it was, thinking that I was damaged goods.
Right. Yeah.
But I realized that through that vulnerability, when I wrote that piece for the Players Tribune talking about all the trials and tribulations and being addicted to painkillers and all this stuff, that was one of the best feelings of my life. Mm-hmm. Honestly, getting the thousands of messages from people who are also dealing with either autoimmune issues or pain on a daily basis, the messages saying, thank you for this. Like, this feels like I have hope. Like, it's so incredible you're going through this. Like, that might have been a better feeling than jumping on the ropes in Madison Square Garden. Like, no joke. And so for me, that really turned a page for me where I was like, wow, I need to be more open and vulnerable. But it's tough in a fighting sport,
Yeah.
You're flying all over the country, you're doing these press conferences. I'm a pure empath. I don't like conflict. I just love competition. Right. I became one of the best fighters in the world because I was a great athlete and I loved competition. I didn't like the conflict of it. Right. I hated the posturing of calling each other out and talking shit at these press conferences. It just wasn't me.
Right.
So that really didn't align with like my heart, my soul, and what I loved. I just loved when the bell rung. I love the idea of it's one-on-one, millions of people are watching, and it's all up to me.
Right.
And fuck it. At the end of the day, I might get my ass knocked out, but at least I'm going to go to bed at night knowing that I went for it. And 99.9% of people can't say that. All the people on the internet and all the people that talk shit say, you're not good, you're not this, you're not that. I'm like, why don't you step in the ring in front of millions of people?
Yeah, let's try it.
And let's try it and see what it's like. At least I'm willing to fail.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I've always said throughout this entire thing. Like, I'm willing to fail. And I think that's made me so successful. And yeah, I've got my ass knocked down a bunch of times and got embarrassed a bunch of times. But, you can't talk shit. It's like the man in the arena quote, I don't want to hear from you unless you've been there in the arena battling with me and you know what it's like. Then I'll listen to you, So that's why boxing and going through pain has really changed my mindset. And like, I don't judge people when they're chasing their dreams, when they're going for it.
Looks crazy.
It looks crazy. When it's crazy, I'm like, good, go for it. Fall on your face. Like, because most people won't. Most people sit behind a keyboard and they'll criticize you when they don't have, the guts to go for it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you're saying, you're a very empathic person. You love caring for people. You are sensitive. And even that word can seem, changeable for weakness.
Yeah.
But you're in a sport that's really, it's not only competitive, but you're basically in pain and supposed to cause pain to somebody else. But you're this really empathic person. The dichotomy is kind of interesting that you chose to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. During the fight, it's happening so fast and the crowd's going crazy. I was never thinking of it like I want to hurt this person. Mm-hmm. Maybe some other fighters did and went into it that way. I just wanted to win. Mm-hmm. So but I do think that there was that element of me being such an empath and me hating conflict that this sport kind of tugged with even my immune system. I think, as I mentioned before, I was in so much fight or flight. And I think that could have been a huge cause of, my autoimmune conditions.
Right.
And now we're discovering how much stress plays a role on the human body. I mean, you think about it, we give ourselves heart attacks just from stress.
Right.
There's literally things that we manifest in our minds that kill us.
Right.
That's insane and not talked about enough. So like, who's to say the opposite can't happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's to say you can't heal yourself?
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think we both know we're nerds of the brain, which I think is like the new frontier, learning. I don't think that we know enough, or you were saying earlier, it's like if you break your foot or your ankle or you do, something happens, you always take the images of that, but we don't actually really consider how that's affecting us mentally and how, and how our mental can really change something. It's even pain itself, it's mental. I think I remember you telling me about a fight that you had, and you had broken your hand, you'd shattered your hand, and you didn't even feel it until you get, to the back and you're looking at your dad and you take the glove off. You're like, wait, this is like 3 times bigger. And you're like, shit, okay, I feel it now. It's just, but that's mental, because your hand was broken the whole time and you still won the fight. It's just like wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
That's a wild story. I love telling that story, and I have a big scar on my hand from it. And it's kind of like always a reminder of me that like mind over body. It's literally like a tattoo that I earned kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That fight was in Madison Square Garden. Thousands of people. For me, I remember walking out of the tunnel at MSG because like my idols fought there, like Muhammad Ali and, Michael Jordan played there. And I was like, what am I doing here? I felt like, do I belong here? And as you mentioned, that fight, I broke my hand, won the fight, didn't feel it. Yeah. It felt a little numb and off, but not broken. Right. Went back to the dressing room, took the glove off. And it was one of those moments where like, a kid, I say this all the time, he falls off a bike and then he looks up to his parents to see if he should cry or not.
Like, am I okay? Or what do you think?
That was me as like a grown ass adult. I looked up to my dad and his face was like, oh shit. Like we need to go to the hospital. Pain kicked in instantly. Yeah. But, and once again, pain is a gift. Like that pain taught me that the adrenaline and your mindset can do incredible things. I mean, any other day of the week, if I'm sitting here right now and I shatter my hand, I'm not gonna be able to function. I'm not gonna be able to, compete or do anything.
Right.
But my mind in that moment was so singularly focused on winning that it blocked out the pain. And I don't know, I think that idea alone has huge implications for what we can do in health with the mind and human body, the next 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is, we start to like really dive into this.
Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking about the brain, like all of the stuff that you've had to go through to kind of unpack and figure out how to dial in dealing with the autoimmune disorder stuff. Like, do you, I know you've read a ton of books and you've tried various different modalities, some that you've, you continue today, some that you've been like, this isn't for me or it's whatever. Do you feel like there's anything that you're kind of like, onto, or that you're like, I've read all these books and I see all these things. Are there any like dots that you're sort of connecting that you feel like isn't being expressed right now, for healing?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, I feel like I need to write a book of all the ups and downs. I've flown to Panama City and done stem cells. I've done brain scans. I've, flown all over the world looking to get out of pain.
Right.
And I'm lucky that I've, been in the position to be able to do that. But one simple thing for me, because I still, whether it's caused from boxing or stress or whatever it is, I still do get a lot of headaches. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to live the rest of my life that way, but I'm working constantly towards, improving that. And I don't regret my boxing career. Mm-hmm. I do want to say that boxing has caused me a lot of pain, but it's also caused me a lot of joy and given me things and given my family things that we could have never imagined. Not talking about financial, even like experiences and just these incredible moments. So, I'm grateful for that. I really am.
Yeah.
But with, headaches that I get, for instance, I have noticed that like 10 to 20 minutes of meditation is incredible for me. So what I'll do is every single day I meditate, right? And I use the Calm app. It's easy.
Yeah. Guided stuff.
It's guided. Now at this point, all I listen to is ocean waves on the Calm app.
Okay.
So I don't do guided. I just do timed.
Yeah.
So for instance, the other day, really bad migraine, laid down, did about 20 minutes of it, and the headache went away. And all of a sudden the energy came back.
With no like Tylenol or anything?
No Tylenol.
Wow.
Like none. I laid down on, I have this like infrared heat mat. I laid down on that. I put on my headphones. I did 15 or 20 minutes. And literally like I just took a bunch of painkillers. I don't know if that's the answer for everybody, but I do know for me that overstimulation tends to give me headaches, tends to cause me pain. If I'm driving too long, my eyes are tracking. And I think through a lot of concussions and brain injuries, it has a lot to do with the eyes, we're finding out.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I was reading about that our eyes are actually a part of our brain. They're just kind of pushed out. And I don't know if you've heard of it before, but there's a type of psychotherapy that they do. I think it's called ETT light therapy. It's like the way that light passes through the iris of the eye. So, for example, if you break your leg or you get knocked out, or I don't know, you're chased by a dog, something that causes you to go into that fight or flight zone in your brain, that your brain is going to sort of file that memory inappropriately, which causes you to have anxiety or a panic attack, if you're near a dog or you see a photo of a dog or something like this. But they use this even for people who've come back from war or just, various different circumstances. But they use light therapy and like the frequency of light passing through the iris of the eye while they bring up this thing that's happened and they correct it, so they kind of make you relive it. But it's like, okay, so you had this experience with a dog, you were bitten, but was it, is it true that all dogs are vicious and, gonna bite you? And it's like, well, no, it's not. And it's like this,
like reprogramming the brain. Yeah, I'm familiar with this.
And it's so fascinating. I've done this before, and it's crazy because I think a lot of people think when you have experiences or injuries or certain things that you have to go through this whole, process of, like years and months of therapy, whether it's physical or, talk therapy. But there's a lot of interesting things that you can do that's quite immediate that, maybe it doesn't, maybe you don't want to own a dog, but if you see one, you're going to be like, it's chill, I'm not going to pet it, but it's fine. You're not going to have a full-blown panic attack or feel like you're back in war or in the ring or whatever.
Yeah. One of the places that I went, it's called the Carrick Brain Institute. This was during that time, those 2 years when I was getting a lot of headaches, having issues. Granted, it helped me, but then I went back into my fight career, which, maybe I should have stayed out. Maybe I should have stayed in. I don't know. But a lot of what they do at the Carrick Brain Institute, and I saw some of the most famous athletes in the world there. Super Bowl winners, NHL Stanley Cup winners. And we were all there doing these eye exercises. And it was incredible. They were taking images of our eyes as we were like tracking things. And it was wild how it helped people with concussions. There were a lot of kids there with autism that they were finding that was really helped at the Carrick Brain Institute. But back to your point, like not a single prescription was written there. And all these kids with autism, these athletes were coming there to get out of pain and feel better. So it's exciting. I think we've just kind of scratched the surface, and so I just hope people are more open-minded to it and don't see it as like woo-woo.
Yeah.
And really believe in it and, low risk, high reward kind of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you have to, I don't know. I mean, especially, so the ETT I did, it's like, it was so immediate that it's like, it's almost unbelievable. It's like somebody sprinkled some fairy dust on you and you're like, oh, it's fine now. It's okay. Because you can't see it. It's not like, oh, well, I took a pill and now I'm doing this. It's, it heals you in a way that you're like, wow, I didn't realize I'm okay with this, or I can move forward. But yeah, I agree. I think we've just scratched the surface, and a lot of people still look at it as woo, but I don't know, maybe people will start to be more open about it. But, I was also thinking about, you go at, you finally make it to this opportunity in your life where you can, with the fight for the world title. Mm-hmm. And that's like everything that you've worked for your entire life. You've fought through pain. You've fought, internally, externally, you've spent your entire life. You've built your identity around like, this is who I am. And I know the project that we did together, I called it I Am, and it's I Am Mike Lee. It's just this about identity and this presence and this confidence. And you get to this moment that you've been training your whole life for. And it didn't go in the way that you were expecting. And I was just thinking, between the pain and then the loss, and sort of mirrored against what I feel like a lot of people are experiencing now during the pandemic, like whether it's family members or their job or their career or, what their identity is. There's a lot of loss that I feel like people are experiencing, and it's so personal because we're at a point where it's not about that you aren't working hard enough. It's not about, it's completely out of your hands. And it's interesting how it's sort of, the pandemic, has put everyone in a way on the same playing field, and when you talk about, even when you have gone into fights, or when even this particular fight, the last fight that you had, it's like, you knew you walked in there and you did everything that you could. You went, you showed up, you trained, you didn't walk away with, I could have, or I should have, or I didn't work hard enough, or maybe I didn't want it hard enough. You're like, this is what I showed up with, and this is what happened. This is where the chips fell. But for somebody who has spent their entire life basing their identity on this is who I am, and then in that moment, it's changed and it's looked different. While I imagine that for you, it's to me, I would be like, wow, that person must feel like this is a stripping of my identity and who I am, and who am I from this? It's really beautiful to see when you kind of take a bird's eye view of the thread of pain that has brought you through this entire, life to even to this point, and how it's in the most beautiful way brought out who you truly are, which is this incredibly empathic and strong and courageous person, to take every little step, every little thing that, has brought you to this point, to then turn that towards other people. It's like it's caused you to really love yourself radically in the most extreme way, on your journey to healing you. And from that overflow, you've been able to now just pour that onto other people. And it's just been this, for me, I'm like, wow, this is such a beautiful thing. But I'm just wondering how your loss in that moment, like, how did you take that? And do you see, like, how could you use what you experienced there with that, for other people now dealing with loss? Yeah.
Well, listen, the loss that I had, it was my first loss in my career, wasn't the reason that I decided to stop fighting. The reason I stopped fighting was because I was in so much pain, and I still am, right? Mm-hmm. So even getting through that training camp was very difficult for me. I was dealing with a lot of pain. What you put your body through to fight at a world-class level, it's incredible. And on top of that, having an autoimmune disease you're battling, it was just too much, Mm-hmm. So I knew win or lose. I told my father this before the fight. I said, win or lose, and I was fully confident at that time I was going to win, I'm going to retire. I'm done. Yeah. I can't go through this pain anymore.
Yeah.
But having said that, as you alluded to, it's so tough, and a lot of athletes or anybody changing now with the times, it's tough when your entire identity since you were 8 years old is a boxer, right? So mm-hmm. for me, whether it was commercials or fighting on TV or whatever it was, I received love through my accomplishments, mm-hmm. not for who I was as a person. So am I enough is constantly, going through my head. It's still tough, because mm-hmm. as much as I love boxing and I think about getting back into it, I realized that a lot of why I did what I did was because at a young age, I was conditioned that if you win, you receive love. Mm. And so I kept winning, and I got signed, and I kept winning more in the pros, and I received love from friends and family. And that wasn't misguided love, but it was my entire identity. And I thought to myself throughout my career, and probably what kept me in it longer than I should have you know, when I was already sick. You know, I had 9 fights after that hospital, 2-year hospital stint.
Right.
Honestly, what kept me in that is it was my identity.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
I thought if I'm not fighting and I'm not performing like this, who am I? And will people love me? Really? Right. So am I enough and will I be loved is like the 2 things people always are searching for. And I felt like if I wasn't competing and I wasn't doing these things, I wasn't enough. And who was I? So now for me, I'm trying to learn how to shift that identity and learn that like I am enough and, you know, I don't need to perform and put my body and health at risk, risk dying to get love. Right. That I can do other things that I'm passionate about and help other people and connect with people and, you know, build businesses or whatever it is that doesn't risk my health. But also I need to find a new identity. You know, who am I now?
You're Mike Lee, man. You're still Mike Lee. I still hold true to that. Yeah, no, I love that, and I love your vulnerability in that. I think that is something that we constantly are asking ourselves, and our identity is hopefully forever evolving.
But you think about it, like for me, when I go around and if, you know, I have people that either watch me fight or fans, I love it. Like they want to come up, they want to talk about fights. People are like, you know, oh, it's awesome. It's great to meet you. But they're excited to meet me because of my boxing accomplishments. So there's a little part in my head being like, would this person even care? And I'm not saying like I want to be famous. I'm not saying I want to walk into a room and be noticed. It's not about that. Will people still love me and be interested in me if I'm not doing that? And I think so many athletes, regardless of money, whatever it is, that's why they wait too long. That's why they don't retire. That's why fighters especially fight way past their prime for money and for the fact that that's how they receive love and they don't know anything else. Right. And so I think one of the most courageous things that I did was say, I'm done fighting. Right. I don't care what kind of check you throw at me, how much money it is. I'm going to figure out who I am outside of boxing. And it's a constant struggle, but you know, I think that was one of the most courageous things that I had to do is realizing like I'm 33, I could probably have a few more years of fighting. Right. Is stopping when I know maybe I have more gas left in the tank. Right. But it's also, you know, for everything is oxygen mask over yourself than the child thing, right? So if you aren't taking care of you, even if, you know, with or without the autoimmune disorder, it's like you're not going to have anything to give, you know, if you're not taking care of you. I didn't. And I was running on fumes. I mean, especially some of those last fights was just on painkillers. I was, you know, I was running on fumes, you know. It was tough. Yeah. So, but now, you know, beyond that, you've created this Soul CBD with your sister Angie, which is awesome. I mean, that to me, that just makes so much sense. You've taken on this whole holistic approach. I don't know a lot about CBD supplements. I know it's like a hot new thing. Like, tell me, like, what's the deal with that? So that, I mean, that's something new that you've taken on that is now a part of your identity. Also, is that extension of healing. It is. It's something I'm passionate about because my sister and I co-founded this company a little over 2 years ago, and I didn't know anything about CBD either. But I was just like turning over every single rock, looking for solutions to pain, anxiety, and I was tired of taking pills. So CBD was one of those things that, you know, comes from the earth and low risk, high reward, no toxicity level, which is incredible. You can't even say that about Tylenol. Right now, we can walk into a CVS or Walgreens and you can take enough Tylenol to kill yourself. Yeah. Okay. Yet we sell it all over the country and all over the world. CBD, which has no toxicity level, you can't overdose on it. Why is the FDA, why is cannabis in general considered a Schedule 1 drug? The definition of Schedule 1 is no medical use or benefit. I'm saying right here, I know thousands of people, millions of people that use cannabis, whether it's the THC side or CBD side, to help them with anxiety, help them with pain. All my buddies who play in the NFL are you know, smoking weed or for pain, for anxiety, cannabis, like is like the untold, you know, secret. Like, right. But they need it. What's the other alternative? These guys are smashing into each other every single Sunday. Like they need pain relief and they know it's not a prescription pill. So it's just ridiculous that the government makes cannabis Schedule I drug, and that CBD, which is now federally legal, finally. So I really want to be a thought leader in this space, right? And so my sister and I co-founded the company because CBD started helping me so much with anxiety, with pain. I mean, I take it every single day. And God knows that if I've gone through all the damage I've gone through with 22 fights, it can help anybody.
Yeah.
So that's given me a passion because we have thousands and thousands of customers and testimonials. I get messages every single day saying, this has changed my life, or, my husband who is in pain, it's helped. My child who has anxiety, it's helped. And that makes me feel so good that we're affecting people's lives like that in a safe way. And I just want to continue to promote that.
Yeah. So I'm sure plenty of people know the answer to this question, but I don't know. How does it make you feel? Like, does it make you feel high? Does it do anything? Like, what are the effects of it physically? Because I think of it as like people taking edibles, and I've heard so many stories where people are like, here's the thing.
Yeah.
The reason I haven't gotten back to you in a week is I haven't gotten back to me in a week. And it's just like this crazy experience. And I don't like feeling outside of my body, but I'm interested to try, but I just don't know. I'm scared of what I would feel.
Great question, and something we get all the time, and something I was nervous about as well, because I was getting drug tested for every single fight for THC.
Yeah.
So it's important to know, without getting into a science discussion here, THC and CBD are two compounds found in the hemp plant or marijuana plant. They're very different. THC is psychoactive. So when you think about the edible, and next thing you know, you're on the couch for 2 hours and you're high as hell and you don't want that feeling. That's THC doing that. Okay. CBD is a compound that has no psychoactive element to it. It's activating your endocannabinoid system, which affects your nervous system. So what that's doing is it's helping with inflammation. So a lot of people that have inflammation all over their body, maybe it's headaches, maybe it's a knee, back issue, CBD helps a lot in that aspect. It also helps incredibly with anxiety. And more studies are coming out on exactly why. But long story short, what it's doing is affecting the endocannabinoid system and attaching those receptors. And when it's doing that, it's almost like slowing your nervous system down, but not in a scary way where you feel out of body, psychoactive, where you're high. CBD in and of itself cannot do that. So all of our products, for instance, are CBD isolate, are 0 THC. So you can't get high, because I was taking our stuff and getting drug tested,
Right.
And that would be a huge deal if I pop positive before a big fight.
No, it's too much at stake.
So CBD in and of itself won't get you high. You'll probably feel like a calming effect, but not to where, I can't drive.
Okay, interesting.
And certain people need different levels. So there's no one like, take 10 milligrams, this will cure all your problems.
Right.
Why it gets confusing is it's almost like a miracle plant, in a sense, where it helps people with sleep, anxiety, focus, inflammation. And you're like, how can it help so many things? But it's affecting so many different areas of your body. So how you take it and what you take really kind of depends on what you're looking for. But the most common reason people take it is for anxiety, and it's helped me incredibly. It helps me sleep every single night.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So I want to try it now.
There you go.
So Soul CBD, I'm coming for you. I mean, I see you guys on Instagram, and you always have everything that you guys post is always very informative and really fun and funny a lot of times. Your sister's hilarious.
Yeah, she's wild.
I mean, the two of you, you guys need your own TV show. It's ridiculous. And awesome that you guys can work together. I know that can probably be amazing and complicated. I mean, I have a brother.
All the
and
things.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But no, I love that you're doing that. And you had mentioned earlier that you had the opportunity maybe to have another fight that you were considering, but you're like, you know what, when I said I was done, I'm done.
So for a long time, we were trying to get a fight together with a fighter named Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. It was a fight I was trying for a long time, and it just never came to fruition. And finally, it's interesting, earlier this year, I think when we were having talks with his manager and it finally could come about, that's when I really decided, not because of him, but just because of my body and the pain I went through. And I just came off that loss in July of 2019.
Right.
you know, and here in January of 2020 is this opportunity, getting really close to what I hoped for was a dream fight for me, a fight that I wanted, a big name. You know, we were shooting for my hometown, Chicago. Mm-hmm. My heart just didn't want it.
Yeah.
I woke up realizing that I just couldn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a huge moment for me, because I realized that if I didn't want to say yes and pursue this possible dream fight of mine, I'm never going to say yes to any of the other fights. Yeah. So for me, it was kind of like choosing my body, my sanity, my mind over the sport, and detaching from that. Like, I have to be a boxer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much more to you than that, right? And I think this is a really cool place where you get to discover that. I mean, like you were saying, most athletes, they'll just kind of hang on for dear life because it is seemingly, you know, such a tragedy to lose that part of your identity. But here you're kind of taking it as a place where you can explore, you know, who are you and what is my worth? And it's not just these things. So I commend you for that. I think that's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you got going on that you want to like mention or plug away with?
No, you know, I'm having fun with the CBD company. You know, I think now more than ever, people are dealing with so much anxiety and stress, but I'm just taking it a day at a time. And it's been really fun growing this company. It's a beautiful thing when you get to do something that you love and you're also helping people.
Yeah.
Right. So I went from punching people in the face and hurting people to now helping people.
Yeah, let me help you out. Yeah.
And I don't know, it aligns with me, I think, a lot more, and I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of the, you know, your story in itself, the public speaking, like certainly like the book, I mean, you should definitely try to write something, because like you said, like there is something really hopeful in that. And it's interesting that you come from this kind of like wild background, like even just the stories in itself, you know, from fight to fight and the training and the grueling of that and putting yourself, you know, through that kind of pain and the discipline that requires, and how it forms your identity, and how there's such a separation in that, and what people are expected of you. And it's just really complex, and there's a lot of layers. And I think underneath all of that, the journey to healing is really rich, and that you're able to kind of take all of that and really use it for purpose. You know, I don't think without all of these things and experiences, you wouldn't be able to help in the ways that you're prepared to now.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. Yeah, that pain was a gift. So, yeah, here I am.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful we got to like meet and hang out and catch up, and you're doing amazing things.